The Cross of Matilda is an Ottonian processional cross in the Crucifix style which has been in Essen in Germany since it was made in the 11th century. It is named after Abbess Matilda, who is depicted as the donor on a cloison enamel plaque on the cross's stem. It was made between about 1000, when Matilda was abbess, and 1058, when Abbess Theophanu died. Both were princesses of the Ottonian dynasty. It may have been completed in stages, and the corpus, the body of the crucified Christ, may be a still later replacement. The cross, which is also called the Second Cross of Matilda, forms part of a group along with the Cross of Otto in Matilda or First Cross of Matilda, from late in the preceding century, a third cross, sometimes called the Enamels cross, and the Cross of Theophanu from her period as abbess. All were made for Essen Abbey, now Essen Cathedral, and are kept in Essen Cathedral Treasury, where this cross is inventory number 4. Description: the Cross of Matilda is 45 cm tall and 30.5 cm wide, and the cross beams are 6.3 cm wide and 2.2 cm deep. It consists of an oak core, covered in gold sheet. Under the cross is a modern glass ball which serves as a handle. The ends of the Latin cross are flared in a way found in Matilda's first cross and the Ottonian cross of Lothair at Aachen. The narrow sides and reverse of the cross of Matilda are covered with gilt copper. On the reverse it is decorated with a punch-marked Agnus Dei which is accompanied by the 4 evangelist symbols. On the obverse there is a crucifix cast in bronze and gilt, with 3 cavities for holding relics, 2 in the back and 1 in the occiput. To the left and right of the crucifix there are enamel roundels with personifications of the sun and the moon, surrounded by 4 pearls each and by filigree work. Above the crucifix is the normal cross inscription in enamel, IHCNAZA, RENVS Rex, IVDEORV, above which there is a large red stone surrounded by 4 pearls. Under the crucifix there is a brown cameo gem of a lion, and under that there is an enamel plate with the donor portrait which depicts Matilda in monastic clothing, kneeling in prayer before the Madonna. The central area with the crucifix, donor portrait, cross inscription, sun, moon and lion cameo is bordered by a strip of alternating enamel plates and stones, each surrounded by 4 pearls. At the end of each crossbeam there are 4 teardrop-shaped, colored stones around a central stone. On the right arm, the central stone is a cameo with a female bust looking left. On the left arm it is an intaglio cut in a piece of striped onyx, showing a helmeted soldier in profile, holding a spear. The Cross of Matilda is generally considered the weakest of the 4 Essen processional crosses in artistic terms. Pothman considers the artistry and craftsmanship to be not as high as the others. In 1904, Human described it as of cluttered grandeur and, every respect, a cruder image. The assessment of the cross is significantly complicated by an undocumented restoration which must have occurred between 1904 and 1950. In this restoration, the edging enamels were melted, allowing the colors underneath to be seen. Crucifix Jesus stands on a suppedaneum, with his legs together. The feet are not nailed. The loincloth is knotted in the middle and falls evenly in broad folds. The arms are slightly unequal in length. The head is bent to the side and is surrounded by a halo which is attached to the horizontal member of the cross and is not adjusted to take account of the tilt of the head. Human calls the position of the body clumsy and awkward. Until 2010, the cavities on his back side contained 3 small relic packets, which were held in place by ties. The relics had been associated with the cross from its creation. The relic in the lowest cavity was wrapped in a purple-colored piece of taffeta and lacks a cedula. A no-scent relic wrapped in white linen is in the middle cavity with an accompanying cedula, from Innocent I. The script, Carolingian minuscule, dates this to the 10th or 11th century and localizes it to the scriptorium of Essen Abbey. There are 3 further fragmentary parchment sigillion cloth fragments in the cavity in the head. The script of these has typical elements of the Essence Scriptorium. One of the fragments can be attributed to Lawrence of Rome. The cross thus contained relics of Saints Lawrence and Innocent. Both of these saints were very important to the Ottonian dynasty to which Matilda belonged. Innocent was patron saint of the oldest Ottonian abbey, Gandersheim, and Otto I, Abbess Matilda's grandfather, attributed his success in the Battle of Lechfeld to Lawrence. The relic packets and sigilli are now stored in the cathedral treasury chamber separately under inventory numbers MK1 to MK4. Enamels. The cross of Matilda was equipped with 40 enamel tablets, of which 37 remain. The enamel with the donor portrait, the enamel with the cross inscription, 2 round enamels with the personifications of the sun and the moon, and 33 ornamental enamels. 3 further ornamental enamels were lost before the first description of the cross. Of all the objects in the Essen treasury, the cross of Matilda is the most richly decorated with enamel. All the enamel frames are filigreed. Donor portrait. The donor enamel is 6 cm x 2.9 cm in size. Its iconic seat of wisdom shows an enthroned Madonna in frontal view on the right, holding her son on her left knee, in front of a figure dressed in the white robes of a monastic. The monastic holds a cross with both hands, which she offers to the baby Jesus. The child stretches both hands towards the cross in a gesture of acceptance. An inscription Mathilde ab bh2 makes it possible to identify the monastic as the Abbess Matilda. The inscription is probably faulty, with the second word to be read as abati. Above and to the right of the Madonna are 2 further inscriptions, which are incomprehensible. It is theorized that they are mutilated versions of Greek inscriptions. The epigraphist Sonia Hermann suggests that the enameler confused the 3rd and 4th letters and has inverted a tau, which would yield mu eta tau eta rho. Hermann would read the symbols on the right, which are arranged vertically, as iota upsilon chi upsilon is an abbreviation of iota upsilon chi upsilon. The background of the enamel is in translucent green, with the letters set in gold. Mary's head is surrounded by an opaque yellow halo and she wears a white hood as well as a translucent brown-violet robe with red ochre sleeves. Robe and sleeves are harmonized by a single gold wire outline. Mary sits on a yellow throne, with her feet in grey shoes placed on a blue footrest. Her face is beige with her circular eyes in the same color as the face. Eyebrows, nose and mouth are depicted with gold wire. The hieratic pose of Mary is a notable feature of the Sedes Sapentiae. The child sits on Mary's left knee, his legs hanging down between her knees. Jesus has a red halo with a gold cross. His face is detailed in gold, like Mary's. Christ wears a blue robe, with gold wire indicating folds in it, and grey shoes. Matilda's clothing is made up of a tight white robe of a monastic, with a white hood which is detailed with gold wire. Under the robe, as is visible on her arms, she wears a blue undergarment. The cross which she holds upright is delineated with broader gold wire. Since the vertical crossbeam merges into the side of the throne and the horizontal crossbeam merges into the throne's armrest, the cross itself is difficult to make out. Matilda's line of sight passes through the transept of her cross and Christ's hand to the face of her Saviour. This donor portrait shows parallels with the donor portrait on the cover of the Theophany Gospels, in which Theophany, in a similar but more horizontal pose, presents her donation to an enthroned Mary. Because of the similarity of the posture of the enthroned Madonna to the Golden Madonna of Essen, it has been suggested that the actual active donation was performed in the presence of the statue. Cross inscription. The cross inscription IHCNAZA RENVS Rex IVDEORV is made of golden wire set in a translucent blue background. It is surrounded by a broad gold border, and the lines of the inscription are separated by golden stripes. The letters are made easily readable, but do not reach the precision of their model on the cross of Otto and Matilda. The dotting of the gold border, which is characteristic of the workshop of Egbert of Trier, is absent, in contrast to the inscription plaque of the cross of Otto and Matilda. Sun and Moon. The two round enamel medallions with personifications of the sun and moon, which symbolize the morning of all creation at Christ's death, are located on the horizontal beam of the cross. Both personifications look towards Jesus, the sun from the left and the moon from the right. The background of the enamel plaque depicting the sun is green. The bust of the sun has a mournful expression and its hands are raised to its face. Its brown-violet eyes are round and its eyebrows as well as its bulbous nose are formed with a wire, while its wide-open mouth is formed from two other wires. A furrowed brow is formed from a Y-shaped wire, reinforcing the mournful expression. The sun wears a crown with four jagged rays in his golden hair and holds a cloth before his face. The enamel plaque of the moon is made as a mirror image of the sun's plaque. The moon also holds a cloth before her face. The enamel is generally darker, the use of wire somewhat better. In contrast to the sun's enamel, the moon's clothing and hair are full of wires. For the face, the enameler used a single wire for the nose and the mouth. Enamels of the edging. The enamels of the edging alternate with gemstones. In total there are 5 different motifs in 5 different colors. 11 of the enamels have a carpet-like stepped pattern. 7 enamels are divided into fields. In 5 enamels a diagonal cross is the motif, often featuring circular motifs with quatrefoil flowers. The remaining enamels feature modified quatrefoil flowers. Diagonal crosses, stepped patterns and quatrefoil flowers also occur as motifs on the Enamels cross. The colors employed are translucent bottle green and dark blue as well as opaque white, red, jade green, turquoise, blue and yellow. Several of the enamels have a reverse counterpart, which is sometimes located opposite. It is probable that all of the enamels of the edging were originally paired, so that the appearance of the cross was less chaotic than it is today. Cameos. The cross of Matilda contains 3 classical cameo engraved gems, which have a significant iconographic role. On the horizontal beam of the cross is a brownish chalcedony, with a cameo of a lion lying down or sleeping. On the left arm of the cross, a horizontally striated onyx features a warrior with a spear and helmet in profile facing Jesus. Opposite him, on the right arm of the cross is an oval cameo with a lightly carved female bust on a dark background. All the cameos are ancient spolia. The iconographic significance of the cameo gems is not yet completely clear. The lion stands on the vertical beam of the cross in the same spot in which the chaste snake appears on the cross of Otto and Matilda and in which the Gorgon cameo appears on the Enamels cross. Both of these symbolize evil's defeat as a result of the crucifixion of Christ. The lion cameo can also be put in this symbolic system, but the depiction of the lion lying peacefully might also have another meaning. In the physiologus, a characteristic of the lion is that it brings its newborn young to life on the 3rd day with its breath, which makes lion a symbol for the resurrection of Christ. The lion cameo could therefore also be interpreted as a reference to the hope for the resurrection of the donor depicted on the enamel plaque below it. The meaning of the cameos on the horizontal arms is even less clear. The use of these particular items of spolia seems intentional, but a convincing iconographic interpretation of the naked warrior with spear and helmet and the noble women has not yet been made. Since both look towards Jesus, like the sun and the moon, it seems possible that they are intended to amplify those images. Dating and Patroness. The cross of Matilda is always considered in connection with the other 3 Ottonian processional crosses of the Essen Cathedral treasury. Long ago, Human noticed significant parallels with the cross of Otto and Matilda and the Enamels cross, such that he assumed that the goldsmith of the cross of Matilda had knowledge of the cross of Otto and Matilda. The form and general idea of the cross of Otto and Matilda are adopted by the cross of Matilda. Donor portrait. Crucifixion inscription. The crucified Jesus on a golden background, surrounded by an elaborate border. The adoption is particularly significant in the case of the Crucifixion Inscription, since the inscription on the cross of Matilda is directly copied from the older cross. The border is adopted from the Enamels cross. The cross of Matilda must, therefore, be younger than these models. In 1904, Human concluded on the basis of the image of Matilda on it, that the cross of Matilda was made before 1011, the year of her death, on the grounds that the cross of Matilda is generally less harmonized, colorful, and technically successful. It was assumed that Matilda donated it shortly before the end of her life, when she no longer had the superior artist of the cross of Otto and Matilda at her disposal. Since the cross of Otto and Matilda was often called the cross of Matilda at that time, he called the cross the younger cross of Matilda, or the second cross of Matilda. The dating of the cross of Matilda to before 1011 raised art historical problems. For one thing, individual ornamental motifs are found on the Enamels cross, which was meant to be created earlier, which only become common later. For another thing, the crucified Jesus of the cross of Matilda shows numerous parallels to a group of cast bronze crucifixes, of which the most prominent example is the crucifix on the cross of Herman and Ida, which was created at least 30 years after the death of Abbess Matilda. There are further parallels with the depictions of the cross on Cologne ivory carvings, such as the ivory book cover of the Theophany Gospels. Since the current crucifix is not fitted on the inside, it was assumed that the cross of Matilda was made in the middle of the 11th century and an original, chased crucifix was replaced by the casts. Since scholars assumed that Abbess Sophia had discontinued several projects of Matilda, such as the Westwork of Essen Minster or the Marsis Shrine, it was also assumed that the cross of Matilda was first assembled under Abbess Theophany, or rather that she had first arranged Matilda's donation. An argument in favor of this is the similarity of the donor portrait of the cross of Matilda to the donor portrait of Theophany on the book cover of the Theophany Gospels. A newer interpretation of the cross of Matilda is suggested by Klaus Gerian Biuckers. Making Theophany herself the donor of the cross, he dates it to circa 1050. The crucifix would then be original. Biuckers included the cross of Matilda among the efforts of Theophany to memorialize Matilda. Theophany surrounded Matilda's grave in the new building consecrated in 1051, the crypt to Theophany, which is known today as the Altfried crypt, with a memorial structure, increasing the liturgical importance of her predecessor in order to increase the importance of the abbey. Theophany, therefore, would have had new enamel made for the cross of Matilda, which directly recalled the older enamel already at Essen. Biuckers supposes therefore that the cross of Matilda was made in Essen, since the only enamels used on the older treasures are Theophany. Theophany probably put the enamel workshop which had made the Enamels cross and the Marsis shrine under Matilda back into operation for the manufacture of the cross of Matilda. History. From its creation, the cross has been located in Essen, except for evacuations during wars and other crises. On account of the depiction of Matilda and the similarities with two other crosses of the cathedral treasury, which were also donations to Essen, it is assumed that it belonged to the abbey continuously from its donation until the secularization of Essen Abbey in 1802. However, the sources for the Essen Cathedral treasury do not explicitly mention the cross. The Inventarium Reliquiarum Ascendensium of 12 July 1627, the earliest inventory of the abbey's treasury, does not allow a certain identification, since it only recorded 2 crucifixes decorated with a lot of gemstones and gold, but gilded copper on the reverse. This description applies to all 4 of the processional crosses in the Essen Cathedral treasury. The Liber Ordinarius, which controlled the liturgical use of the abbey's treasure, speaks of processional crosses only in general terms. During the 30 Years' War, the abbess fled with the treasure to Cologne, and in 1794, as the French advanced on Essen, the abbey treasury was taken to Steel, where it was kept in an orphanage donated by the abbess Franziska Christina of Sulzbach. At secularization, the Catholic Church of St. Johann Baptist took over the abbey as well as its property, as the parish church. It made the cross, along with the rest of the cathedral treasury, accessible to the public for the first time. During the Ruhr Uprising of 1920, the whole treasury was taken in great secrecy to Hildesheim, whence it was returned in 1925 in equally secretive circumstances. In the Second World War, the cathedral treasury was first taken to Warstein, then to Albrechtsberg in Meissen, and thence to a bunker in Siegen. After the end of the war, it was found there by American troops, and the cross along with the rest of the treasury was taken to the State Museum in Marburg and later to a collection for displaced artworks in Schloss Deichenreit. From April to October 1949, the Essen Cathedral treasury was displayed in Brussels and Amsterdam, before it was brought back to Essen. With the creation of the Diocese of Essen in 1958 and the elevation of Essen Minster to the status of cathedral, the cross became property of the diocese. Liturgical use. The details of the liturgical use of the crosses in Essen Abbey are not known, though the sources, particularly the Essen Liber Ordinarius, which dates to around 1400, describe the use of the processional crosses for processions. They speak of these crosses in general terms, without mentioning specific crosses. Although the diocese no longer uses the cross of Matilda in processions on conservation grounds, it is not a museum piece, but a religious object, which can be used in religious services. For instance, it was used as the altar cross on 5 November 2011 in a memorial service on the 1000th anniversary of Matilda's death, for whose memory it was originally gifted.